Cluster sampling. The population is divided up into regions, but unlike stratified sampling, the region should be more or less representative of the population we are sampling from, what's known as heterogeneous. These regions are called clusters. Clusters are randomly chosen. Then once chosen, we can measure every object in the selected cluster, or we can randomly sample from the cluster if the number of objects in the cluster is large and sampling every object is not necessary. Multi-stage sampling may be used, meaning once the clusters are chosen, we may employ a simple random sample to get our final objects that we can measure. As an example, multi-stage implies that we will use more than one sampling technique to get our objects that eventually will be measured. Due to the way the sampling technique works, not every sample from the population is possible. So how does this work? Let's find out. So here we go. Here is MODA Center. And we again have mentioned that these sections in the first ring should be very similar. These next section in this next set of rings should be very similar, and this last section of rings should be very similar in price. So what I've done is something of the following. I've gathered sections and so that it's representative of the entire population. In this case, the price of the seat. So I typed section 101, I think section 203, and section 305. And then I do this in a systematic manner. I hit section 102, then section 205, and section 307. And I've kind of coupled these together in the hopes of creating each cluster is pretty much representative of the entire stadium. And so here we have it. Cluster 1 consists of section 101, 203, 305. Cluster 2, 102, 204, 306, and so on. You can tell there's not enough of section 1, so I would have to do something here to repair, but I'm not going to worry about at the moment. In fact, to make my life simple, I'm just going to think about it from this point forward. So just like before, once I've determined how the clusters are connected, it's just a matter of randomly selecting clusters. So let's just say I'm only going to sample 3 clusters. So I'm going to select 3 clusters. So my 3 clusters are 7, 6, and 18. And now one thing I could do is sample every object in all these sections. Or I may decide that if that's too much, that I will randomly sample from this cluster, then this cluster, then this cluster. Again, once I start doing that, we'll consider that a multi-stage sampling technique. But the idea of clusters is to first divide your population into groups such that each little cluster is just a minor version of the entire population. So again, due to the way this sampling technique works, not every sample from the population is possible. So again, it's the way I've arranged it. It's not possible, for example, just to choose an entire sample come from one section. It's just not going to work that way. So if that's the case, again, not every sample is possible. Again, what I'm assuming next is that if I decide to sample randomly from here, I will maybe sample some from here, here, and here. I can further divide this up. So to make sure I get seats from here, and seats from this location.